Good morning, it's Sunday. I am reading The Invisible Way, A Time to Love, A Time to Die by Reshad Feild, and I have been describing his meeting Noor. They are now still at Elizabeth's, but they have been visiting Margaret, who showed them around her equipment. We are now on chapter 13. It was getting dark as we got back to John's house. Noor talked excitedly all the way, but I was tired and still very tense from the meeting with Margaret. John was waiting for us. He looked refreshed from his rest and seemed eager to talk. This time I felt I just could not cope with any more, and I asked if I could be excused to rest before supper. He smiled at me. "Where is your stamina?" he asked. I took a deep breath to try to answer, but he went right on. "Don't worry, I understand. Noor and I can enjoy ourselves together, can't we?" he said, holding her hand. "Come down when you are rested, and we will see what is coming up." When I finally woke, it was dark. Looking at my watch, I realized that I had missed supper. So I lay back in bed for a while and tried to sort out the experience and thoughts of the day into some coherent pattern. Time had become so condensed these past few days that it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep up with what was going on. Certainly this period was like no other I could remember. The sense of inevitability and the internal pressure arising as more and more new ideas were fed to us made any distinctions in time seem completely arbitrary. In particular, I found the imminence of John's death subtly changing my own attitude to life. Looking back, I realized that when I was sent back from Turkey to meet Elizabeth, something had been set in motion in my life that was culminating in John's death. It was the inevitability that was the mystery, the setup, as Noor called it, a mystery that in some strange way the map of our lives is already set in its completion in the matrix, but that it is up to us to fulfill the possibilities. If we accept this, it seemed we could know where to be and what to do. Yet, yes, it occurred to me that the real mystery hidden in all this was that it is not possible to know what to do in advance. Action is taken in the ever-present unfolding of the moment. I saw just how often I had stopped the natural flow in my life simply by imposing my own opinions on a situation rather than seeing the moment, and the situation arising from the moment as the teaching that was necessary. As I lay back in bed listening to John and Noor speaking in the room below, I found myself going in and out of the two sorts of time that had now become quite real to me. At one moment I was in the world of passing time as we normally see and identify it. I followed the pictures and images passing by the screen of my mind, just as I might observe the traffic passing in the street outside the window, or the different events of the day, one following another. Then I was in another time in which everything was complete at once. Time stopped still, and all the events that before seemed sequential were made real precisely through their movements in passing time. Everything was contained in one moment. All the events of the day were seen in one picture. In the next instant, I saw again only the events themselves as they occurred sequentially in time. It was in many ways an unnerving experience. I knew that the mind could only understand a fraction of truth, and that I would have to find a way to see passing time objectively, without becoming locked into it by the senses. Yet, at that moment, life took on a new meaning for me. I cannot say that it made it any easier, but that was not the point. What it did was to show me the shallowness of routine life, in which I considered that I had some right to understand with the mind as it was, not realizing that only through the sacrifice of our own linear thinking we can begin to comprehend who we really are and what our purpose in life is. Noor and John were talking happily when I came downstairs. "What on earth have you been doing?" asked Noor. "You've missed supper, a wonderful conversation, and a bottle of wine. That is very unlike you," she said, laughing. "Don't push him too far," John said. "He is only half awake as it is. There is supper in the oven and a salad in the fridge if you wish." "I'm not really hungry," I said. "I have been lying awake in bed for quite a long time, contemplating what has been happening. I feel so full already. I don't need any food, thank you." "So what have you been contemplating? If you will pardon my asking. There isn't much time, and I want to know what you are getting out of all these experiences. Noor tells me that you both had a good time with Margaret." A lot of what was way over my head, John. A lot of that was way over my head, John. Noor seems to understand it better than I do. There have been many realizations, and I suppose it will take ages for me to get them down into some sort of coherent whole. But what has come through most clearly is to do with the nature of time. I explained as best as I could what I had seen of passing and eternal time. John nodded in agreement and sat back in his chair puffing his pipe. "Yes," he said, "the cross is a good symbol to describe those two aspects of time. The vertical bar of the cross represents the eternal aspect of time, and the horizontal bar the aspect of passing time. Where the two bars cross, it is possible to see both times at once. The flashes of deep understanding we have come from that point. But there is something else to consider. When we do not first accept things as they are, we are almost bound to want to change them. By imposing our concept on perfection, we are working from our own selfish desires, from our egos. In a sense, we create another sort of time, imposed on that which is already perfect in essence. It is not difficult to understand, but like everything else, until someone comes along to tell us this, it is difficult to accept. Curiously enough, John, that was one of the things that I was considering upstairs just a few minutes ago, I interjected. It is similar to imposing opinions on a play before it is acted out. That's right. In the process of imposing these opinions, to use your expression, we build up all sorts of karma for ourselves and for others. We are forced to play out what we have created in the mind, and we are forced to pay for our stupidity and ignorance by playing a role in the book that we ourselves have written. It is quite frightening to realize this, but it is most certainly a step towards real freedom. If you understand some of these things, you won't cause yourself so much pain, and so you can help others to understand. I know this is a lot to stomach all at once, but I want to put it to you another way. Let us, all of us, look at what is going on in the room at this moment. On the one hand, we can see that everything here depends on what has happened before. For example, if you had not on some level searched for a partner with whom you could share your spiritual journey, it is unlikely that you and Noor would be sitting here with me. Equally, if she has not come to certain realizations, we could not be talking as we are now. I can only really tell you what you already know. For my part, I too had wished and prayed that someone would come along with whom I could share these things before I died. On the other hand, there is another way of seeing things that is equally correct, and that is to attempt to live life without imposing anything on it whatsoever. One begins to feel that everything was set before the world of passing time as we see it, and that we are merely actors fulfilling our role in the completion of the act. The play is called As You Like It. That is what I am attempting to do now, to play out what is in a moment and not to impose my concepts on it. If you both do the same, you will not be working with false time, but will be accepting things as they are, and thus accepting this possibility that they will unfold in perfection. If we stop for a moment, it is possible to perceive a pattern in our lives. The motivators that have influenced us become more obvious. We are able to see life unfolding from both ends at once, coming into the present moment. But until we have got to a certain point of realization, this is not possible, because everything is still seen as a series of apparent causes and effects. John smiled and lit his pipe again. Noor was sitting by his feet. She had an unforgettable expression on her face. She seemed to be in a world of total gentleness, perhaps hearing and seeing things that she had always known. At least that was the way I experienced it. The room was still. She turned to me for a moment and our eyes met. There was an unspoken bond of recognition, which a long time afterwards I too came to understand. John smiled. He looked suddenly tired. Would you like to rest now? I asked him. It is getting quite late. No, we have so little time, and as long as I can keep going, and as long as you are listening, it is important to continue. You see, the understanding of time brings us closer to the possibility of going beyond. It will be all right. Why don't you get me a whiskey and soda? I'll go, said Noor. How do you like it? Whichever way you make it for me, he answered. These vices do not matter much anymore, and a stiff drink sometimes helps the pain. I had completely forgotten. The shock of realization carried me back to childhood and the anguish of being scolded for forgetting everyone else but myself. John sensed immediately what was in my mind, for he turned to me and spoke with great command and tenderness. Don't be sentimental about my discomfort, for sentimentality can be the greatest enemy of love. I want you to listen and to understand, not to get immersed in fear and guilt. The pain I have is mine. It is not yours. You have your own to deal with, whether physical or emotional. You cannot help me with the pain any more than the doctors can. You can be sympathetic, but please don't identify. Never identify yourself with anything, not your own so-called problems, nor those of another. Be yourself at all times. Keep your mind on what you are doing, outwardly or inwardly, so you may continue on the path of service. I was sitting next to him. There were tears in my eyes, but they were more from gratitude than from personal pain. Noor came back with drinks for us all. I saw her look at me, but she said nothing. Now then, John said, let us take our conversation a bit further. Listen carefully as we gather ourselves more completely in the present. The fear of death dissolves, and the point of conception moves closer. So-called death and conception are actually in the same moment. Something gives way, makes space, if you like, for something else. A sudden energy is released in dying, and that energy gives life to something that wishes to come into manifestation. Can you say then what you mean by conception? Asked Noor. Do you mean the literal conception of a child? Come now, he said. Remember, you are invisible. The physical form is just the vehicle. Conception takes place in a world before time, and then, little by little, the form is built to contain that which is really coming into manifestation. What is seen in this world is merely the physical expression of other greater worlds, manifesting here, penetrating this world. At the moment of a person's death, a child is conceived. It may not be just a physical child. Think of the world of ideas, and that the quality of what is born depends, at least partly, on the parent's degree of consciousness. The energy released at the time of death, if used properly, can help bring about the birth of an idea in a real way. If a man or a woman dies consciously, the effect of this act is so great that it is literally impossible for anyone witnessing the event not to be changed. To die consciously means not only to be totally awake, but also to have nothing left in this world to hang on to. No anger, resentment, fear, and so on. Nothing is left but the knowledge of love itself. Do you understand, Noor? Can you see what I'm trying to transmit? What does this mean? Obviously, it is impossible to say more than just a little about this. The inner experience must be your own, not mine. So take what I've said for now, and when the time is right, perhaps you will be able to see what I'm trying to express. I stop this here and continue this chapter soon.